Today's video is sponsored by Picker's Grip. Stop dropped picks and pick rotation while playing with Picker's Grip. Made with all natural ingredients in Virginia. Check out their website to order. When you support my sponsor, this also supports my channel and it's very much appreciated. If you don't want to hear the cold hard truth, do not watch this video because I'm going to give you 7 tips that you might not want to hear about how to sell your used gear. I've done a few videos on this topic in the past, and they've gotten a lot of response, which is great. But I keep seeing the same recurring theme from people's comments over and over and over again, and it just boggles my mind how many people out there just don't understand how, the used guitar and musical instrument market works. So that's what this video is for when it comes to selling your used gear. Here's a few things that we should all keep in mind when doing so. So in no particular order, here we go. Number 1, be realistic. And I mean 2 things by this. The first of which is be realistic about what the gear that you have that you're trying to sell. Be realistic about what it's actually worth. Okay, it's not it's not that difficult to determine in most cases. 5 to 10 minutes of research on the internet with eBay and eBay and Reverb especially will generally give you an idea of a window of what the value of that particular item is. And I'm not talking about asking prices. People can ask whatever they want, and I'm going to get to that later on. I'm talking about actual completed listings, what people have actually been willing to pay for the item that you are trying to sell. So be realistic about what it is that you have. It is not gold just because it's yours. Also, be realistic about the offers that you might get for that particular item. And what I mean by that is there's generally 2 different ways to sell an item. Or a piece of gear. You can either sell it on your own, and that's going to be the Craigslists and the eBays and the Reverbs and the Facebook marketplaces now, and places like that. And of course, on the street inside your circle of friends, that kind of stuff. That is what we will call selling it on your own. The other option that you have is selling it to a reseller. And here I'm talking about the guitar shops and the pawn shops and places like that. People, and those are the ones that I'm referring to specifically. When you're making a decision, and there are reasons why you would do this. If you're making a decision to sell your used piece of gear to one of those places, be aware they have to make money on it, and they are not, going to determine the value based on what your asking price is or anything remotely close to it. If they're doing their jobs, they should be determining the value based on what the market value is telling them it's going to be. Number 2, you as the seller, unfortunately, do not get to determine the value of that item, unless, of course, you manufacture it yourself. But if you're selling a Fender made in Mexico standard series Stratocaster that sold new for $500 3 years ago, and you're trying to get $400 or $450 out of it, your asking price is absolutely useless, because everybody knows that guitar used right now is worth between $300 and $350, and it's only gone up to $350 because Fender raised the price on them here recently, before they actually just discontinued them last week. Of course, you do not determine that value. Your seller is. Your seller does not determine that value either. The value, again, is determined by what people are actually willing and are paying for that particular item. eBay completed listings is generally your best friend in that particular instance if you want to know that specific number. There's still lots of used gear being sold on eBay, and All you got to do is filter the completed listings to see which ones of your item have actually sold. And that's going to give you a collection of how much they're actually, of how much they're selling for, and tell you again, the window of possibility of what that thing is actually worth. But if you bought it for $500 a year ago, and you're asking $4 because you don't want to take any more than a $100 hit on it, unless you find somebody willing to pay it, which is going to be very difficult, I don't know what to tell you. You're probably not going to get it, especially if you want to sell it quick. Once again, your gear is not gold just because it's yours. Number 3, be respectful. And this goes back to the second half of my first point. In the instance when you're selling to a reseller, you got to be open-minded, and you got to know going in that they are going to offer you less than what it's worth, because they need to make a profit on it. And again, be that a store, be that a pawn shop, be it a private reseller, whatever it is, they have to be able to make the profit that they need to make on it, and that's going to determine what they're going to pay for it. So if they come back with something lower than what you're willing to accept, that's okay. You do not have to accept that offer. It just means that you're too far apart and you can't do business together, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens. That happens often. That's not a time to start throwing out insults and accusing them of lowballing you and all that kind of stuff. Because as I stated earlier, not only do you not get to, your asking price does not determine the value of your used guitar, but you also don't get to determine what kind of a profit margin that reseller needs to make in order for it to be worth their while. Somebody commented on a video just the other day, as a matter of fact, and it's probably the comment that spawned this video. And what he said was he went in to sell something to a store, and what they offered him was far lower than what he was expecting. And again, as I just mentioned, that happens. But he thought that they should have given him about 10% less of what they would have sold it for, because they're such a big company, and they would have been made, that was more than enough money for them. Well, in that particular instance, that's just the opposite. A big company, they got to make quite a bit of profit margin because they got a lot more expenses to cover. And that is why they are going to make the offer that they are going to make. And especially with used gear, particularly when it comes to some more oddball, rarer stuff that they don't know what it's going to sell for. They're kind of just doing the best they can without being real positive on it. Resellers got to be cautious, and we as as a seller need to be conscious of that. There's no need to be disrespectful going back and forth one way or the other. Number 4, modifications in your gear almost always devalue it. I don't care if you spent $300 on a new set of pickups, between pickups and the wiring and all that stuff, and paid somebody to put them. I don't care how much it cost you. If you put them into a $400 guitar, at best you threw away $300, because now that specific guitar that was manufactured for an entire demographic of people, now it is modified for a demographic of one, and unfortunately it's the guy that's trying to sell it. Some people, you might find the right guy that likes the particular modification that you put on it, in which case, you got lucky, to be honest. But in most cases, the way to maintain the most value out of a particular item is to keep it as close to original as humanly possible. Sometimes things need repaired. Yes, that's going to devalue it as well. Modifications certainly are going to devalue it. Again, this goes back to my first point of being realistic. And if you don't understand what I mean, think about it on a grander scale. The 1959 Les Paul is, if you're holding a 1959 Les Paul in your hands that is all original condition, still very good condition for as good of a 60-year-old guitar can be. No repairs, no modifications, none of that. It's it hasn't been not a lot of playing wear on it. You're holding about $350,000. If one screw that's holding in the input jack, and we're talking about a part literally that big, if one of those has been replaced, devalues that guitar by thousands. Let's take my trusty old Schecter Blackjack SLS. This guitar actually is all original. I haven't modified a single thing on it. And I'm using this guitar specifically because this is the one that I have done most of my demos with, number one. My pedal and amp demos, that is. And number two, this is a pretty average run-of-the-mill guitar that you can buy. Brand new, this guitar is about, I think, was $8.99. You can still find all kinds of specs on it, and the things about this guitar that make it attractive to prospective buyers are the Seymour Duncan pickups, the original Floyd Rose, the coil tapping capabilities, the neck profile, among other things. So let's say, for example, I swap out those pickups for a pair of EMGs. Well, now if I go to list this thing for sale with the EMGs in it, somebody that is looking specifically for a Schecter Blackjack SLS is most likely going to move on to the next listing once he sees that the original pickups are not in it. Prospective buyers want used gear in their original condition. Number 5, as the seller, the selling fees are your responsibility. When talking about used gear, be it out of a store, eBay, Reverb, any of that stuff, traditionally the buyer is generally responsible for paying the shipping. Most used gear that I buy, I expect to have to pay a few bucks extra because I got to get it from usually somewhere else in the country to me. And again, as a buyer, I expect that to be my responsibility. As a seller, the selling fees I also expect to be my responsibility. I am not going to... I saw a listing of a guitar recently where somebody was... they had their asking price, plus they wanted $20 to ship the guitar, plus they wanted another $15 to cover all of their listing fees, and which is absolutely ridiculous. The selling fees that I'm talking about, by the way, are PayPal fees, listing fees on Reverb, listing fees on eBay, credit card fees if you're a seller and you're selling out of you're selling with a credit card, or nowadays they've got those little credit card machines that people can swipe on their iPads, and some people use those. As a seller, that is the cost of business. That is the cost of operating, and that is the cost of that particular every transaction that you make has a cost to it. And again, it is the seller's responsibility to cover those fees, and it is absolutely disrespectful to the buyer to expect them to cover those fees for you as well. They are not your business. They are not in charge of your business. They are not responsible for your bills or your expenses. That is on us as the seller. Number 6, unless you know the other person, do not accept PayPal gift as a form of payment. And here's the reason why. PayPal does not view a gift as a business transaction. PayPal views that as one person giving money or gifting money, hence the name, to another person, meaning that there are no taxes or fees or anything involved. However, because there are no taxes or fees or anything involved in giving money from one person to another, that means that it does not carry the same protections with the transaction that an actual business transaction would carry. Protect yourself in this instance. There's unfortunately, there's a lot of shady people out there that do a lot of shady things, and honestly, that's really the point of this video. And because of that, if PayPal is a great way to send money back and forth, but in doing so, going back to my last point, pay the cost of doing business, pay the PayPal fees. I mean, the PayPal fees are next to nothing anyway. It's going to cost you a few bucks. Pay the PayPal fees and protect yourself. That way, in doing so, if the guitar shows up damaged, or if the guy does receive it but somehow says that he doesn't, you have an insurance policy, and PayPal, who is a giant company, behind you to back you and take care of you in that instance. If you tell the seller to send it as a gift because you don't want to pay a few extra bucks for the PayPal fees, you're screwed. Number 7, when you're listing a piece of gear, only brand new is brand new. Bought it and used once and hated it and had to sell it on Reverb because you were outside of your return policy at that point, That is not brand new. That is used. When people buy brand new, they expect to receive with the item that they're purchasing a full manufacturer's warranty. If the full manufacturer's warranty that is attached to that item was already given to you when you bought it, you do not have the ability to, number one, offer a full warranty with that, because you can't produce a receipt to the individual that is coming from an authorized dealer. And number two, you're not an authorized dealer. And you're listing it as new. Don't screw the seller. You don't, as an individual seller that is selling an item that you've already bought from an authorized dealer, that warranty is null and void as soon as it is resold to somebody else. And you do not have the ability to back the manufacturer's warranty because you are not an authorized dealer. Don't screw the seller. New other is not acceptable either. New other is supposed to be, as a buyer, you got to be careful with this. You got to be, and you got to watch out for this. And I see it more and more. New other is for scratch and dent items. Something that may be, may have some shop wear on it because they've had it for a while and haven't sold it. Somebody bought it and returned it for whatever reason. And it's in the original packaging, but the factory seal is now broken. So, things like that. That's what the designation new other is supposed to be used for. Bought it, used it once, hated it, and now want to resell it for whatever reason is not new other. Again, even those instances with the scratch and dent and stuff like that, when those are being sold by an authorized dealer, the manufacturer still backs the full warranty on it. So you don't have the ability to do that. Regardless of how used it is, even if it's still in the exact same condition it was when you took it out of the box for the first time, mint condition is the best we get. Mint condition or like new, whatever, whichever one of those you want to pick from. That is the highest that we should go as far as condition goes. Brand new means brand new. Emphasis on the word brand, as in the manufacturer, brand new. Okay? Listing your used item, regardless of how used it is and whatever kind of condition it is, listing it as new or new other is misleading, it is dishonest, it's bad business, and it drives me absolutely crazy. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to me rant. That, I gotta admit, that's really what this video is about, just because I had to get some stuff off of my chest. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon right next to it down below. And you will receive alerts that usually are not nearly as angry as this one when I upload new videos every Wednesday and Saturday morning. All of the links, including the link to my new Teespring merch shop, will be down in the description. The Teespring merch shop link should be towards the top, by the way. So if you want to support this channel, by all means, please go check out the merch shop and buy yourself a t-shirt. By doing so, you're supporting this channel, and I am very, very grateful for doing so. Last but not least, leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. You know what? There are tons of young people out there that want to get involved in music and do not have the means to do so. If you are watching this video, most likely you're a musician, and many experienced musicians have tons of broken and unwanted gear lying around that they're not doing anything with. Please visit my friends at Share the Music on Facebook at the link below and learn how you and your unwanted gear can help change somebody's life.